Well, thanks for coming, everyone. Go ahead and get started. I know you guys are anxious to get to lunch. So my name is Ben Shelton. I'm the project manager for the North Carolina 911 board-funded Orthoimagery program. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about where we're at in the project status and possibly get into some of the details on what the different options are on products that can be derived from the imagery and on top of the imagery as piggybacking options at a local or county level. And then give you a little bit of a timeline of, I know procurement is different at each organization, and procurement is definitely different at the state level. So give you a little timeline of what our procurement cycle looks like and where these piggybacking options kind of fit into it. Like I said, this is a North Carolina 911 board funded program. It's annually funded by them. So we go before the board and put a proposal for each project year. It has one common focus. It has an emergency response necessary critical framework data set for the CAD response systems. Yeah, is it going to echo? I'll just use the podium. All right, is that better? Thank you. Okay, there we go. So they have a focus on emergency response. It is a framework data set for them. It allows the CAD operators to be able to respond efficiently and effectively to all sorts of manners of calls that come into those centers. And as you can imagine, I think the number is about 70% of calls going to 911 nowadays are mobile related. So having high resolution, good quality imagery across the board in the state is essential to having the best tools for them to be able to respond, whether that call is coming in from a house or an address, or whether it's coming in from any location out in the field, anywhere we can be able to route calls to those locations. So currently we're in the middle of acquisition season for our Southern Piedmont Mountains project here. It's 21 counties in the southwest of the state, extending east of Charlotte all the way out to Murphy and Cherokee County. The difficulty of this project area is 50% of these tiles in this project area are considered mountain tiles, so that we have increased specifications for flight line, 3D flight planning, sun angle that can only collect when it's a 38-degree sun angle. And there's a lot of different requirements for snow cover and flood gauges being within the banks and that kind of thing as well. So it's a smaller project area than a lot of our other projects. They average about 25, 26 counties, but because of the mountains and how much of this project area is considered mountain, it provides its own challenges. Currently we are in the middle of acquisition season, so this is really not up to date. They did collect more imagery on Monday, but this is the current status. If you haven't noticed, it's been raining a lot, so that's not good for us. Raining and warm, so the trees start getting those Bradford pears blooming out, so we get a little nervous, but we feel that there's still enough acquisition time that we can get this all collected this year. So on Monday they did fly about roughly Cleveland and Rutherford County got some collection, out there in Jackson County and all the way out in Cherokee County. So we had 4 acquisition systems up in the air on Monday, collecting as much as they can. There's still a tight acquisition window because of the sun angle specs, but they did the best they can on Monday, and hopefully we'll get some better weather in March. Hopefully it stays cold. I joke that this project has made me hate warm weather, so it's kind of ruined me. I like cold weather now, and cold and clear. So we have about from the beginning of February all the way through April, we have about 6 or 7 days that they're able to collect. So it's a little high stress situation getting all this collected each project year. This is just kind of a current status of where we're at in the whole project cycle. So we start back in July with a qualifications-based selection process. That means we don't pick vendors based on low bid. We select them based on their qualifications of doing this highly technical work. So it takes 6 months for us to get through statewide procurement, get all those contracts in place. And then the imagery acquisition starts in February. We start planning and doing flight planning and stuff in January. Then we'll go into production after it's collected. And then many of you might hear from me if you're part of the imagery project area that we do this online QC product. It's called Voice. That runs from July all the way into October, November. And then we plan on delivering in December, the first week of December. If you're a part of the previous cycles, you'll know we used to deliver in the end of January, but we've improved a lot of our efficiencies. Hard drives are getting cheaper, solid state hard drives are getting cheaper. We're implementing the technology necessary to process these things quickly. So we're able to cut 6 weeks off the project timeline, get it to you before the end of the year. We know that makes a big difference. So here's a quick overview of the counties that are in this project area and when the quality review for those counties. So if you're in one of these counties and you're not on my distribution list that I've been sending out emails, come see me, email me, get involved. The more eyes we get to see the product early, the better the product is in the end. And we feel that our voice process has really kind of refined itself over the last 6 or 7 years. And it's a good, efficient way to review the imagery all online, respond to the contractors. The contractors use the system to respond back and make fixes to the imagery, and then we are able to make the best product that we can. Now I kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit. This is our Orthoimagery project website. On this website we've been kind of adding and developing it over the years, and now it has a lot of kind of take the kitchen sink approach to a website, is just add everything about the program that you might want to find out. Try to do it in an orderly manner. And I'm going to try to do what you're never supposed to do in a session, is use the internet and try to show you something. All right. I can find my cursor. And again, like I said. So our first tab here is kind of like the history, background, all of our specifications. It has the links to the Ortho standards that the state has implemented over the years, and the business plan of how the 4 cycles are laid out and where that came from. Let's see if I can do this. So that's, if you're looking for history of the program, that's a good tab to start in. But one of the newer tabs that we've implemented here, it's called our Imagery Discovery Tab. So if you're looking to use products that we've derived from this program or download them, you can come to this, and it has some interactive maps where you can, for this first tab, is click on any county in the state, and straight from the map interface download that county's mosaic imagery. So what we do is we develop these 50-to-1 compressed mosaics that are county by county based, so it's just one file for that whole county. It might have a little visual quality loss than the original TIFF product, but we feel that it's a good medium between size and usability and not having to manage a bunch of tiles. So you can click anywhere in the state and download the imagery, and it's a large file. It's about 10 to 20 gigabytes depending on the county, so it might take a while. I would recommend doing it overnight or something. Then if you go down to, on the left, we have our tiled product. If you have the hard drive of imagery sitting on your desk, you need just one tile of your imagery. It probably won't load, but you can go on here and click anywhere in the state and see what tile that tile name is, and then find that name on your hard drive to pull that one tile in. So these tiles are only 20-to-1 compressed. They're visually lossless. But they're only 14 megabytes compared to 300 megabytes of the original file. So. Then we have our seam lines, which kind of show the acquisition dates for everything across the state. Now this one probably definitely won't load. It's a large data set. Hey, surprised. So you can see when the imagery was collected. So that's a major thing for a lot of people. If they're looking at the imagery, they want to know what day that was collected so they know the ground conditions. And you can go anywhere in the state and see and find out what the latest acquisition date for that project was. And then at the bottom we have some links to our NC1Map web services. These are, if you're a GIS user, you want to stream that imagery in your own GIS, this is where you can come and find those services and the links that you need for those. So that's our imagery discovery. That's anything one stop where you can find all of our products that we supply. What this presentation is kind of focused on, what I'm going to spend the bulk of the remaining time on is, so over the years, local and county governments have taken advantage of the cost savings of our program going on in our projects and being able to go and do additional BuyUp products on top of our normal contracting. So, these BuyUp products are anything from color infrared to higher resolution imagery, planometric data that's derived from it. So we wanted to be able to put something together that, if you're looking to do some justifications, some budget requests on your end to get things lined up for these optional products, give you some material that you might be able to use in your justifications so that when you go to your county, you can say, these are the use cases and this is why we need these products. And, the more data, the better. And if our imagery program can benefit you for some cost savings, then that's what we wanted to do. So we wanted to add this stuff to our program website. I have different tabs up here. So the primary one that we see a lot of times for BuyUp opportunities, so we do 6-inch across the state. A lot of states around the country do 6-inch in urban areas, and then they'll do 1 foot or 1 meter in the rural areas. Well, 911 early on said, well, we don't care if it's rural or urban, we want 6-inch across the board. So that was a good investment early on, and it makes sure that everyone has the same tools no matter where you're at throughout the state. But here, some localities have taken that a step further and said, well, we want 3-inch imagery. And, the 6-inch imagery looks good for most things, but, the 3-inch kind of takes it a little step further. It gets really clear clarity on stuff like manhole covers, utilities, and things like that. So here we put this split viewer. You can kind of drag this in the middle and see the difference between 6-inch and 3-inch. You can see kind of like just how different the pixelation is. If you wanted to use this for examples or anything like that, we have some materials over there. And 3-inch imagery is nice and it looks great, but what are you going to do with that 3-inch imagery? One of the products that imagery is used for is planometric data. So planometrics is impervious surface mapping, anything from utility lines, curbs, bridges, sidewalks, things like that. But really, the level of detail you get from the planometric data is really dependent on the imagery resolution. So if you're planning on doing utility data mapping off of the imagery, you need to plan ahead, kind of 2 steps ahead to say, oh, well, we're going to need 3-inch imagery to do this level of planometrics that we want to do. So having that an idea that you need to, it's kind of built upon one another. It's not just coming back and say, oh, well, we want to do this planometric data, but you go to the vendor and they're going to say, well, we've already flown the imagery at 6-inch. We can't, you're not going to get any cost savings by going on top of our program. So, planometrics is a big thing. So we have some kind of details on what level of imagery you need for different levels of planometric data. So. And then we have color infrared. Color infrared, or the 4th band. Our products are all 3-band RGB. But if you wanted that 4th band, many times that is collected at the same time. It's already collected, so there's a lot of cost savings. You can go to the vendors and they'll give you a price per square mile typically of what it's going to require to get that 4th band from them. We've had a couple places like DuPont Forest. They're doing again this year to buy up for that 4th band product. And that 4th band, it has a lot of uses. You can do NDVI change detection routines. If you have two different years with that 4th band, you can see what's changed between those 2 years. And you can also do a lot of vegetative analysis, forestry. There's a lot of benefit from that color infrared that, if you have the expertise that you can build upon. And then, so as part of the 2017 project, it started in 2017 with the downtown Raleigh area. We implemented a new product for these urban areas that's called True Orthoimagery. And what True Orthoimagery does is, we had minimal, closer together spacing flight lines in the urban areas to minimize that building lean, but there was still slight building lean in many areas. So what True Orthoimagery does is it adds another layer of 3D modeling and processing that if you see that building in the middle, in the previous year it was still leaning and blocking some of the sidewalk. Well, now in 2017 you can see that sidewalk is clear and you can see all the ingress, egress points for emergency response and things like that. So this increased processing in this True Orthoimagery product can be bought up as a piggybacking options for other areas. We're doing it as the downtown areas for buildings over 40 feet. We did it for Winston-Salem, this area, and Greensboro in 2018. but in 2019 we're also doing it in Asheville and in Charlotte. So if there's other areas you feel that this would benefit your areas, you can always buy up this product. I know we've heard some stories from other contractors that, full counties in Maryland have bought up True Orthoimagery, and the costs are actually pretty reasonable. So it's not as, it is very labor intensive because they have to go in and create these break lines and seam lines on top of the buildings. That building moves over, well, it leaves gaps in the imagery where the building moved over, and they have to kind of take pieces of other images and fill in those black areas. So, it's a lot more process intensive, but we feel like it's a good improvement, especially for emergency response. If you can't see the entrance to the building, sometimes that becomes an issue. So with these tall structures, we felt like it was a good process to implement. All right, go back to my presentation. So as I said, the True Ortho approach is being applied to Charlotte. This is how we kind of analyze buildings of 40 feet or 40 feet or higher using the statewide LiDAR program. And then we are contracting the vendor for that area to increase their flight line spacing to up to 80/80 overlap, and to do that further processing to create the True Orthoimagery project. So here's our normal project timeline. And where these piggybacking options kind of fit into that timeline is right there in that window. I mean, it's a kind of a short window between December and the start of acquisition in February. So we know that's a really big time crunch. As soon as we have the vendors under contract, we can release the names of who's flying where. So once we can release that, we do. It's typically around November. And then once we have that's when you're able to talk to those vendors and price out the specific products you're needing. But really, it's doing the homework and the front end ahead of time. You have to align your budgets. You have to make your budget requests and develop, your plan for what you need. So we know that, that's a tight window, but if we can get you some information ahead of time so you can do your homework and get your budgets in place, that really kind of benefits a lot. So that's our project timeline. And, we know it's a time crunch. So we're going to finish up 2019 this year. And, next month, no, it's not March yet, but in April, we will be going before the 911 board and putting forth our plan for the next cycle to start back along the coast in 2020. So I put this slide here, specifically because the North Carolina 911 board funds this program. They put a lot of money into this data set that's given for free to every citizen in the state. And if you have feedback on this program, if you want to tell us something we can improve on, or any kind of feedback we can get is great. The chairman of the North Carolina 911 board is sitting right here in the front row, so he is here to accept your feedback. So you're welcome. Thank you, Secretary Boyette, for coming, so I can direct people to your office. But we feel this is a good value for the state. Emergency response and 911 response is very important, and it's a critical data set for this response. But they had the foresight and the vision to go forth and say, this is a public data set and we should provide this for free to every county and locality in the state. And we feel like it's really benefited the state in the long run and saved a lot of money. So if you have any feedback, feel free. And with that, here's the website to that program website that I was detailing, and my door is always open. If you can't tell, I can talk about imagery all day. So call me up. I'm willing to listen to good and bad things, whatever you have to say, try to help. So, the projects might end, but there's always life after the project for different things. Or if you're having issues using the product in your own organizations, we're here to help. That's what we're here for. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
How many inquiries about the additional products have you had in, say, the Eastern region, which is coming up?
We've had quite a bit of discussion as they're kind of trying to align their budgets right now. So we've had several counties ask about the 3-inch imagery and Plano Metric data, some of the land cover products that are derived from the color infrared, impervious surface delineation, that kind of thing. So there's quite a bit of discussion going on right now. That's kind of why we are starting to, really present on these things in a public setting, because, more and more we're getting approached by these local governments who realize that there's an opportunity here for a lot of cost savings. So.
And that impacts the choice of the vendor selection as well, too.
Yeah, it does play a factor into the vendor selection, but we really kind of, when we do our QBS process, we sit down and before we select any vendors, we say how many vendors and what does the project need to get done with the minimal risk to the 911 board, and that's our primary concern. And then after that, then we select whoever scored highest in our QBS process and kind of as a team come together and decide who goes where. And one of those factors is localities and partnerships that you guys have. Any other questions? All right. Well, I know everybody's anxious to get to lunch, but I'll be around the rest of the week if anybody has any questions. Thanks.